Hello, everyone. Here's your weather hazard briefing for Thursday, April 27th. We've got a storm clipping the divide today, so a quick shot of some showers and some wind. You might even see a few thunderstorms over along the Wyoming border. Otherwise, an extended period of warm weather is on its way. That definitely means some increasing snowmelt and runoff. We might see a few folks hitting 80 or just above 80 by the weekend. And eventually, we will see moisture returning from the south and west. And with the warm temperatures coming, that does look like a rain on snow event, especially for our mid elevations once we get into the early part of next week. Satellite shows northwest flow. We have our main push of moisture already shifting east, but you can see a little bit of moisture. There's that little storm coming down out of Canada that's clipping the divide later on today. Otherwise, high pressure builds over us, or at least tries to expand over us. We'll take a look at how this pattern may set up next week. And it's a matter of where low pressure sets up over the western U.S. That will actually depend on if and when we get any moisture coming our direction. Our weather risk outlook, you notice we do have some breezy conditions across the Magic Valley, the South Hills, also across portions of the Central Mountains. There are those few showers over along the Wyoming border. The best chance of thunderstorms, if we see them, will be generally around the Driggs area north up through Island Park. Otherwise, increasing snow melt is the issue, and with the really warm temperatures coming, our higher elevations, especially across the South Hills, Albion Mountains, and the southern and eastern highlands, also up across portions of the Central Mountains and including up into the Wood River Valley, we will have increasing snowmelt and runoff issues. Those are the areas that have higher impacts coming with that versus the rest of the area. At least that's how it looks at this point right now. Taking a look at where we were going to see those showers today. By sunrise, a few sprinkles, some light showers over southern Montana moving into Limhi County. You'll notice those quickly shift to the east, but you'll notice going later on today, we have some showers developing early afternoon up around Island Park and the Montana border. Those eventually shift to the south and maybe a little bit southwestward. The best chance of showers through the day will be up along the Montana border, and this will be light precipitation. We're not expecting any major amounts of rain or snow with this particular wave coming through. And east of I-15, there's a very low chance, we're talking less than 10%, of any of these showers pushing south and west, say towards Pocatello and Blackfoot, American Falls, Malad, over towards Rockland, over towards Malta and that direction as well. And if they do, like I said, it's about a 10% chance, and those will be quickly gone before sunset, or before midnight, I should say, across our region. So back to where things are today with our wind. There are the gusty winds developing this morning over the Magic Valley into the South Hills and up along the Montana Divide. The strongest winds will be over Limhi County across the Central Mountains, especially the ridge tops, and pouring out into the Arco Desert area and spilling over the divide west of I-15 and obviously to the south as well. For this afternoon, you can see those winds really picking up. And the strongest, like we said, up north, some of those gusts approaching 50 miles per hour there, and also across the South Hills and Albion Mountains. I think the strongest winds in this area will be at Ridgetop and also around the Yale area, those west winds coming down off the mountains, downsloping across I-84. Those winds continue into this evening, but you'll notice they're originally from the west to northwest. You'll notice by this evening, they're still out of the northwest once you get into the Magic Valley and the South Hills back over into the Treasure Valley. But elsewhere, they're becoming north or northeasterly, a very quick little weak boundary coming through that's causing that wind shift direction. But you can see into this evening, some gusts 40 to 50 down south and around 40 to 50 up north, again, especially spilling out of the Central Mountains and across the divide into portions of Clark County. And those winds really die out overnight. Some gusty winds remaining, especially closer to midnight down across the Raft River area, the I-84 corridor into the Magic Valley as well. So taking a look at highs for today, most areas in the 50s and 60s. Once you get from Pocatello south and west, we're looking at a mix of upper 60s to low 70s for this afternoon. The only really places that we're going to be out colder than the 50s will be the really high peaks over into the big holes in the Tetons and across the central mountains and along the Montana Divide. For tomorrow, temperatures, you can see where they're going to be warmest, above freezing across the portions of the Snake Plain into the Magic and Treasure Valleys to the south as well. Breezy northwest winds keeping the Wood River Valley pretty warm, also above freezing across the Chalice area up towards Salmon as well. And into the afternoon, we're going to be within a degree or two of where we are today. A few folks may warm up a couple of degrees, some folks cooling down a couple of degrees. But the overall trend for tomorrow is even the higher elevations are going to be warmer across the region in the wake of that storm system. So want to take a look at something here, something else really quick. Sometimes we like it to look at some probability forecasting. Kind of gives you an idea of, what else could be going on out there besides the yes or no forecast or the most likely forecast we give you. Skipping ahead to Saturday, we talked about temperatures in some places potentially getting over 80 degrees for afternoon highs. And this is the probability of over 80, and you'll see that's mainly confined to American Falls westward and south towards the Malta area down towards Oakley, where you see some of these oranges and yellows. If you're able to see those particular color bands, we're talking 60 to 80% chance of above 80 degrees on Saturday. Similar conditions, maybe just a little bit less for Burley down towards Oakley, and certainly that increases once you get into the Treasure Valley. For Sunday, that kind of spreads a little bit across the area, and where you see these bright yellows, we're talking 90 to 100%, and you'll see in the forecast, that's where we're actually looking at some low 80s by the time we get to Sunday. But elsewhere, Pocatello, we're talking about 50 to 70% chance of seeing 80 degrees, and again, once you get up into the Shoshone lava beds, similar percentages, but once you get north of there, especially heading towards Craters and up towards Timmerman Hill, those values quickly drop off. Some right around and down towards the Juniper area, about 30 to 50%. The same also from Malad to the south. Elsewhere, very low percentages of reaching 80 degrees, if at all, the potential of getting to 80 degrees for Sunday. And we see those percentages expanding, but we're also seeing them generally drop off. Just a very slight cool down possible on Monday across the area. But many of these areas, Pocatello, American Falls, down towards Malta, Burley, we're talking 50 to 70, 80% chance of still seeing temperatures above 80. And then lower percentages spreading up in the upper Snake Plain, where we're seeing some potential around 20 to 30% up that direction. So back to the actual forecast for the weekend. Here we are. Low temperatures, many areas staying above freezing, and that's going to be the key with increasing the snowmelt. Not only the warm afternoon temperatures, but staying above freezing overnight. So you'll see the really cold spots in the mid-20s to low 30s over the Central Mountains, up towards Island Park and down towards Bear Lake as well. But you'll see mid to upper 70s, maybe trying to hit 80 once you get over to west of Twin Falls, near 70 in Stanley. Low 70s for the Chalice area as well. And honestly, probably not until we're talking elevations up Boar Peak elevation level that we're going to see temperatures anywhere very cold, very cool across the region. For Sunday, you can see those temperatures continuing to warm, and we talked about those 80s, and it definitely looks like we're going to see lower 80s from American Falls westward, and like we said, where we've got some mid to upper 70s, just the right conditions, maybe a little bit of a downslope wind, a little bit of better sun angle this time of year, we might actually briefly hit 80 in a few more spots. Look at Stanley, 70 degrees, finally hitting the 60s down towards the Bear Lake area in the afternoon. And for Monday, not terribly different, maybe backing off a couple degrees in some spots, warming up a couple degrees in a few areas as well. So we talked about this weather pattern for next week. What's happening is we've got high pressure that's going to set up generally over Idaho or in the Divide, and this is what we call the cluster forecast. This kind of groups things in the general forecast pattern and kind of gives us a look of how things may be trying to shape up out in the extended. So you'll notice pretty much all the cluster forecasts have high pressure setting up over Idaho. This is for Monday afternoon, and generally that area along the Divide. 100% agreement on that as well. And we don't necessarily need to worry about some of these colors. Just look at how the pattern is going to set up. As we go into Tuesday afternoon, you'll notice the area of low pressure, that ridge kind of stays in the same spot. maybe in that area of low pressure settles down the coast, maybe a little bit of a wobble in the overall pattern. This is for Tuesday afternoon. Again, all general agreement. Now, by Wednesday, you'll notice we start to see maybe some differences on where this area of low pressure sets up. This is a blocking pattern that's setting up over the region. So most of the forecast put this low along and off the west coast. So the farther west this low goes, the less moisture that moves in. It'll be available for us to get some showers and storms. It'll stay to our west. You'll notice about 20% of the cluster forecasting says when that low starts to move inland by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon. The closer the low gets, that's more moisture for us. It may be a little bit cooler, but that's the increasing potential of rain on snow at some of our mid-elevation locations. Going to Wednesday afternoon, you'll notice most of the forecasts keep that low to the west or shifted even farther south. There's that 15 to 20% cluster forecast potential, trying to show that low hanging closer inland or maybe trying to shift inland a little bit more for Wednesday. And for Thursday, things get a lot more complicated. You'll notice there's about 60% of the forecast saying keeping that low to the west. There's the rest of the 40% forecast shifting it inland or actually even almost on top of us by the end of next week. So that's kind of the uncertainty we're heading towards. Yes, we do have a few showers moving into the forecast by the first part of next week, but until that low really shows a shift closer to us, the potential of increasing rain on snow really isn't going to come into play into the forecast. Something obviously we will be watching to that period. So like we said, we have our storm coming today, a few showers and storms and wind. The big story is increasing snowmelt and runoff, increasing potential for flooding across the area, especially in the higher elevations where we got a lot of snow left to go to melt off. Have a great Thursday and stay safe out there, everyone.